Now it's time to finish up the left side of this wolf's head. So we're going to be going over some of the same areas, but we're going to be adding more definition. I'm using the Cordovan dark brown in the corner of the mouth, but now I'm using the 263 Indian red to get a lighter and redder brown around those edges of the mouth to get that definition in, where the fur is just, it's not gray, it has a brown tint to it. And now I'm using my 211 white to carefully, it's got a sharp edge, pull some white, short white hairs over the edge of the mouth. I'm looking for other areas where I can add that right underneath the mouth, on the bottom lip. And now I'm using my 263 to add a little brown down there and create a little more definition. And my white pencil to make a sharper edge there. Now I'm using my sharp edge of my black NuPastel to add little sharp black hairs. We did a little bit of this in part 3, but now I'm making them a little more defined and a little sharper. Using my 211 white NuPastel to add some brighter hairs around that part of the nose. And they're real short in here, so I'm making sure that I make all of them really short. Again, using a sharp edge and light pressure. I've added more white to the muzzle, and now I'm going to use my 9B graphite pencil to add that shadow area that's right there at the corner of the mouth. It's the perfect thing. It adds a subtle gray tone. It's very helpful in shadowing without being too dark. So I'm using it to also accent those follicles where the whiskers are going to come out. Now I'm adding more hair as we go down the left side of the wolf, using a nice sharp 276 buff to add those hairs. Now I'm using my 211 white. So I'm just going back and forth between the colors we've already used to add hair on the face to finish filling out this side of the wolf. Now I've switched to the 299 light gray, very sharp edges. I don't want everything to be the same color, but again, pay attention to the direction that the hair grows. I'm just going to let you watch me do this. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. Now things are a little bit faster. I'm using the same colors, the 211 NuPastel white, the 299 light gray pastel, the 276 buff pastel. I'm also going to use a 313 nut brown and fill in these hairs using the black and also the 333 cordovan on the edges to go in between the hair where it needs to be darker. I'm going to base coat the remaining background area with 707.7 medium gray. I'm using my half a stick that's been sanded, cross-hatching the color on. And then I'm going to follow that color with 411.3 burnt sienna. That's our dark brown, or our medium dark brown. And the 231.5 gold ochre to blend that in together. We can't add the final hairs until the background is in. I'm adding a little more gray over that to mute it and even things out. And now I'm adding some brown over that, making sure that the colors are nice and smooth. So now I'm going to continue to add hairs with a 276 buff. And I use mostly the cream color because the coat is warm in this area. I'm using my 353, the sharp edge, to add some darker hairs back into the coat. It creates the shadows, and now back to the 276 buff. I'm also using the 253 Cocoa Brown to add color to the coat. And that's the 313 Nut Brown. Kind of a goldy color. Use the colors that you have and use the colors that work for you, colors that you like. Your colors may be different than the ones I choose in my work. I'm going to add some white hairs with the 211 on the very edge and on the edge of the mouth. Now I'm using my 105 ivory pencil to add some wispy hairs into the coat. It goes perfectly with the 276 buff that we used earlier. This project has shown you different things that you can use to get the look that you're after. So you can use pastel pencils in conjunction with your NuPastels to make a beautiful coat on the wolf. Now I'm using my white charcoal pencil to add white hairs into the coat as well. You can see I curve it and twist it to get those curly hairs. Take your time adding these hairs. This is your finishing touches, really. So you want to take your time doing that. Don't add too many, it becomes overworked, but add a few here and there. Now I'm using my charcoal pencil to put in my whiskers. Now I didn't like those, so I'm using my 9B graphite pencil to slim them down. And now I'm going to use my white, the tip of my white NuPastel to make them lighter. I really didn't like the way they looked. They were too thick and they were too dark and they were distracting. So we can fix that. And here's a way to do that. Now I'm going to use my 9B for the follicles on those top two hairs. But now I'm using a 4B charcoal pencil, which is a little harder, and it makes a little thinner line. It's less dark to draw in those whiskers. So having an assortment of pencils would be a good thing. And sometimes the 6B pencil is softer than you think it's going to be. In this case, I had a very soft pencil. So that's why I switched to the 4B to do my final whiskers. Now we're going to finish up the right side of the wolf's face. So now I have 305 spruce blue. I'm putting in the dark mask on the wolf. Now I'm using black, going over that. We started on this in our last step in part 3, and now we're going to finish it up. On the right side of the wolf's face, the darks are not, the mask is not as visible as it is on the left side. So I'm just going to carefully draw in this with my NuPastel black. Using the point, and I'm also using the sharp end. I'm working all around the forehead, and now I'm over to the edge of the face where I'm going to draw out a few black hairs. After we get the background in on that side, we'll be able to finish it up. Be sure and notice the curve of the face of the wolf, and that the black hairs go around that curve to accentuate it. That's the direction of the fur, it grows around. And now the hairs are going straight down. They're very short on top of the nose. Now I've switched to my 263 Indian Red. Defining the shape of the outside edge of the muzzle with that. Also adding color to that area that we're going to add hair to. So I have my 211 white, and I'm going to add those little short hairs to the top of the nose. Be sure and watch how the hairs grow. You can see I'm trying to accurately get in the direction these hairs grow. Using my 263 to add some brown in between those hairs and to help to define that area a little more. Now I'm going to put in a few short black hairs. Now I'm using that 9B again, and that helps to blend these together. And I'm using my 211. Let's switch to the one with a point on it to get the white in on that right side of the muzzle. Doing that very carefully. That's a very important shape. Get around the corner of that mouth. This is still white. This is just one that doesn't have a point on it. And so I'm working those little hairs very lightly up the center of the face. I'm going over the top of the eye now, getting those bright white hairs in that go over the eye. Using my black charcoal to pull some black hairs in that. That just adds so much to help make the eye look like it's part of the face. And now I'm adding the bright white hairs over top of that. Forms kind of an eyebrow. And moving on to the hairs that are on the outside edge of the wolf's face. I've switched here to the 299 gray. I don't want them to be as prominent as the white ones over the eye. The bright ones draw attention to the eye, which is very nice. And this is the 211 white to get those little hairs that are underneath the eye. I'm using my 6B charcoal pencil to pull down some black hairs from the eyelid, bottom eyelid, down into those white hairs, and draw some black hairs into this area on the side of the cheek. I'm continuing to add more hairs to the forehead. And I'm using the gray 299 NuPastel. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit while I add all of these hairs, switching back and forth between the 299 gray, the 211 white, and this is the 263 Indian red. Now I've switched to the white to add some brighter hairs over the eyebrows. Now I'm using my white charcoal pencil to add the little short bright white hairs that are on the edge of the wolf's face, right up next to the ear. And I'm using the 6B charcoal pencil to add some black hairs. White hairs with the 211. And shaping up that side of the face a little bit more. And now we're going to add some more background. So I'm using the 707.7 to add the base layer of color to finish off our background. Using a crosshatch motion, you can see it. One layer doesn't fill the whole background in. That's why we use 3 or 4 different colors. So don't worry if yours isn't solid at this point. You can see that mine is not. Our brown layer now, the 411.3 Burnt Sienna Rembrandt. And this is 411.5 Burnt Sienna, which is a brighter shade of Burnt Sienna. Remember, it doesn't have any black added into it. It is the pure hue. So we're going to add a nice even layer, cross-hatching over our wolf so that we can add our final hairs. And now I'm using the dark brown, 411.3. This is the 231.5. The gold ochre. Gold ochre has a little more white in it, so you can see it's starting to get a smoother appearance. I'm going back and forth between the different browns to get it like I want. Now I'm adding 704.3 dark gray to darken the corner so that the eye will stay inside our painting and not be drawn out by a lighter area. I'm going to go over that with a little gray. The gray, you can see, fills in some of those imperfections in the paper. You can get velour paper is very delicate, and if you're not careful, you can make dents in it with jewelry, fingernails, different ways of mishandling it. So treat it very carefully. I'm completing the entire background area. I have I have a layer of 411.5, and now I'm putting down 411.3 over that, making it very smooth. And then 231.5 gold ochre over that adds a nice light area next to the eyes of the wolf, and I'm using that dark gray up in the corner to darken it and keep the viewer's attention focused inside our painting. I've added some more pastel, and I'm rubbing it with my fingers to kind of push it into the paper. It doesn't really move very much, but I like to rub it anyway. So I'm going to finish adding these colors. I'm going to go darker in the corners. With the dark gray. Putting some brown over the gray. And so just going back and forth between the different colors until I get the background to look exactly like I want it to. Nice and smooth, even gradations of color. And now it's time to add those finishing touches to the wolf. Any places that I want brighter or darker, just wherever I look around and see that something needs to change. Something isn't quite right in my painting, or I need an adjustment, now is the time to make it. So now I'm going to add those hairs on the right side of the face. So using the 276 buff, I'm going to start to pull those hairs out into the background. Now that I've added the background, we can add the pastel on top. We don't have to color the background in between the hairs. So in a way, this is so much like painting with oils. I can add the light color right over the dark color and fill in all those beautiful hairs. And I'm switching to my gray, my 299 gray. And I keep all these very, very sharp so I can use the edge and then rotate it when it gets dull and use the next edge. I'm using the 211 white now to pull out the white hairs on his face. Into the background. He's just looking beautiful. And using my 353 Cordovan, I'm able to add some dark brown hairs as well, just pulling them straight out into the background. And this is also widening his face. It was a bit disproportional before. These hairs on the side curve down a bit. They are about medium in length. They're not super long. Now I'll use the black to pull out some black hairs. Now I'm using my 6B charcoal pencil to pull out some fine black hairs. I'm varying the direction of these hairs. These are the final hairs. Some of them, they twist and turn in different directions. And so using a pencil enables me to create that effect. Using my white charcoal pencil, I'm going to add a few hairs with that as well. I'm getting all those little fine hairs with my black charcoal pencil and my white charcoal pencil. And now it's time to put in a few whiskers. I am using the 6B this time. It's working a little better for me than before. With my glassine paper to protect it, and I'm using my 6B charcoal pencil to add some final black hairs from the top of the wolf's head into the background. I'm also going to use the 6B pencil to pull little tiny hairs from the ear up into the background. We could do this before until we got the background in. Now using my 276, I'm going to add some bright hairs at the base of the ear. I'm kind of going back and forth, letting my pastel get a little dull in areas so that it looks fluffier and brighter down the base of the ear, but now I'm using a sharp edge to get the sharp hairs in the ear. I'm using my white 211 to add some final hairs as well, making little adjustments. And I'm using my 6B to add some black hairs on the left ear. It's this attention to detail that'll make your painting special. I use my 276 to add a few more hairs on the top of the ear. And now I'm using my white charcoal pencil to add a few final hairs inside that left ear. I'm really liking the way that the wolf looks. I'm adding a few more hairs now with 233 raw sienna into the background. Mixing in some gray 299, just continuing to work on the left side of the wolf. I've sped this section up of these final little tweaks, adding these hairs over on the left side, going back and forth between the different colors that we have used previously, adjusting the mouth and the shape and the value by using black and adding some more little white hairs with the 211 NuPastel. These are all just final adjustments, making that a little darker and using the 6B to add a little bit more shadowing to define that side of the face. Sharper white hairs. Okay, now I got a little bit out of hand. I got a little bright and a little clunky, so I'm going to use the 6B charcoal pencil to fix those. It's very important when you make a mistake, it's probably more important to know how to fix it in case you don't get it right the first time. So there's lots of things we can do to fix mistakes. So I'm still adjusting things with my pencils. Each of these little tweaks makes a big difference. And decisions that you make like this as an artist will make a big difference in your final painting. A little dark here, a little light there. These are all things I do at the very end to make my animal the very best that it can be. Now we're going to add some final spots of color in the background to add some punch to it and brighten it up and make it look more fall-like. This is 371.5 permanent red light that I'm using on the end, and on top of that I'm using 202.5 deep yellow to make those out of focus little light spots that you often see in photographs, and I'm rubbing those in with my finger. And this is the 231.5 golden ochre. And I'm going to add some more red. I like that red and yellow combination in the background. Now we're going to add some green. This is one of the greens we used in the eye. This is the 268 light sap green. I'm just using the blunt end to add the green into the background. And now I've picked up the 308 palm green. It's a little bit darker and I kind of like it better. So I tried out the sap green but decided to use the palm green. So I'm just cross-hatching some color into the background and blurring it with my finger a little bit. And now I've decided to go over on the other side behind the wolf's head and use the same colors. I've used the 202.5 deep yellow and also the red. A little more red there, a little more yellow. I want more attention drawn to this side of the painting. You can put as much or as little of this as you want. You don't have to put it in if you don't want to. I just thought it added something to the painting and a little more green. This also gives color continuity in our painting because this is the green we used in the eye, so we're using it again in the background. I'm going to finish up by adding a few more hairs to the left side of the wolf, pulling them into the background color. I hope you've enjoyed this video workshop painting this glorious wolf, and join me next time for my next video workshop.